Hey, I'm LaGrange with Jenna Cameron. We are Mediflixx, and today we're talking about 5 tips for better healthcare video marketing.
Tip number 1 is that people need to know their audience.
Yes, before you make a video of any kind, you need to know who the video is for, right? We see this all the time. A company will come to us, they'll have an idea for marketing, some kind of product, some kind of service, but they haven't really thought about who the message is meant for. Is it meant for people who are also in your industry who could benefit from it, or is it from people like us, everyday people who really aren't in the industry and just are needing to receive the message for when we are sick and we are at the doctor's office and we need to know more about the technology that's available to us? Is it for the patient or is it for the clinician? That's the first question you have to ask, because from that point forward, that answer will drive the entire production. You don't want to make something that you meant for a clinician that's not scientific based or is not clinical enough, frankly, to be speaking to them and trying to relate to them, to try to build trust with them. On the other side, you don't want to be making something that's super clinical and super scientific and it's going to go way over everybody's head if your intended audience is the patient audience, because frankly, none of us study this stuff the way that doctors do, and we're going to have a really hard time understanding what you're talking about if you are speaking in scientific, clinical terms to the layman like myself and like Jenna here, because frankly, we are not clinicians.
If people are speaking to patients, something that I would recommend is really getting into those foundational layers. But yeah, if you are making content for clinicians, which is typically what we do, then you can jump over those foundational pieces because you're going to lose your audience. You need to focus on a hook that they want to see or something that they may not understand yet. Maybe identify an educational gap there. And lead with that rather than telling them things that they already know or already understand. What's number 2 on your list of 5 tips for better healthcare video marketing?
Number 2 is don't skip pre-production. Obviously, we just talked about, you have to know what the message is first, who your audience is first, and that goes directly into pre-production. You could even argue it's part of pre-production. Pre-production is figuring out what the tone, the messaging, the feel of the video is going to be before you get to the location, before you turn on a camera, before you mic anybody up, and before you do anything else. You have to know what you're doing first. You can't just go in and wing it. If you go and wing it, there's a very good chance that you will have wasted a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money even, hiring a production crew to come film something and make something for you, because the end result will ultimately not be what you really had envisioned. And that's the key here. In pre-production, we're putting down on paper or on a computer screen a storyboard. We're putting out there what you envision ahead of time so that we can get as close to that at the end as possible. A lot of people will hire a company to do a video for them and not be concerned about the messaging on the front end, not be concerned about the pre-production part of it, and then at the end there's 40 different re-edits of that video because nothing was done on the front end to establish the boundaries or establish what it's going to be. And so you just keep picking at it and picking at it and picking at it after it's already all been done. In a lot of cases, you can't really change the end result to be what you would envision on the front end because you didn't do anything on the front end. So what we do at Mediflixx is we have a call, first of all, with the folks who are going to be involved, with the people who are hiring us to do the job. We then outline and storyboard what we envision this to be. We write down our interview questions because that's what we do, the interview style. And we have a plan going in. We're about to go film something really soon that's actually going to be at a studio. It's a bright, white, big, open studio because what we're filming is a medical device. We're not filming a patient story in this case or following a doctor around or anything like that. We are filming a medical device. And yes, we are speaking to a doctor, but we want that medical device to feel clean and clinical, because that's what it is. So we're actually going to a studio though that will allow us to do that. We've chosen a location ahead of time. We've spoken to the people who are going to be involved about what we need to capture. And so when we get to the end, when I edit something and give it to them, there might be a couple of things that we change. There inevitably always are, but we will not have to do a wholesale saving of the video in post-production because we actually had a plan on the front end. Number 3 is personality is important. You have to inject some personality, and I know that sometimes with the clinical stuff it's tough to do that because you're really just trying to show the product, you're trying to speak to the science, you're trying to avoid any regulatory problems with what people are saying and what people are showing. I get all that, we do that fairly often, but we still find a way to at least capture the action, at least capture the process of how that product is being used. You gotta show some personality, or a better word maybe is authenticity. You have to show the real world application of it. And if you don't, it can come across really robotic. If you have a script that you're really trying to get people to say verbatim on camera, they're gonna come across extremely robotic and there's no personality there. And yeah, they spat out the words, they got it out, they made it happen, but it sounds bad and they don't look like themselves and they don't sound like themselves on camera. You gotta let people just speak openly on camera and then know that in post-production you can cut certain things out, you can blend things together, you can cover with B-roll. As long as your crew is prepared ahead of time to capture all that stuff and knows what they're doing as far as sound bites go, you'll be fine. Just let people be in their element on camera. Don't be afraid to let them just speak from the heart and speak authentically because you know that you can cut things out later. I can't stand it when when folks come to us and like they're adamant about a script. I always tell them, okay, I see your script, but let's think of this more in like an outline format. Let's think about here's the beginning, middle, and end. Here's what needs to be said here, here's what needs to be shown here, and just kind of let it be free flowing and we'll make sure that we're avoiding any kind of pitfalls along the way.
All of us can tell when someone is reading off of a teleprompter.
100%.
You know, and
you can
then
always tell.
Immediately, don't you feel like it's disingenuous and you like
Yes.
lose your audience and you
Yep.
start losing your trust and your credibility because things are scripted.
Exactly
People
right.
know that. We're all intelligent. We're all really good at observation. We can observe and acknowledge when somebody's reading a script. It's not good to try to feed the people that you're going to have on camera lines because that's going to make them ultimately either shut down or come off as being, fake.
Right. You should think about your script in bullet points. There's maybe 3 bullet points, 5, 7. There's a few points you have to hit on, but between those bullet points is the breathing room that you're allowing your subject on camera to explore and relax with a little bit. Just don't force people into a box. Allow some personality. Personality is so key, like you said, to build trust. That's the whole point of advertising in the first place. Yes, you want to show how great your product is, but you also want the person on the other side who's seeing the advertisement to trust what you're selling and trust who you are selling it to them. Because if you can't have trust, then you really got nothing. No one's going to buy from you. Number 4 is don't use AI avatars in your marketing material. An avatar being just a fake person on camera who's speaking words and not moving their head and not moving their face and grinning like this and barely doing anything other than just regurgitating what you put in there. It's horrifying. Yes. If I sat here and talked at you like that, you'd be so freaked out. I just did it.
I'm a little freaked out.
Yeah, you should be. And so it goes back to what we just talked about. You want to establish trust with your audience, and the quickest way to destroy that trust is to come across extremely fake. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about personality being important. We're talking about authenticity. Now we're talking about avoiding these avatars that you're starting to see pop up because they may not be that expensive. I haven't looked into it. They don't seem like they're that expensive. They seem like a cheap alternative to bring something on camera. Yeah, it's a cost saver and it's a embarrassment saver. A lot of people don't want to be on camera, and so you will go to this AI avatar alternative trying to avoid any sort of embarrassment speaking on camera, because this is not the most fun thing, I'll grant you that, but you got to have a real person on camera from your company because you're trying to establish that trust, and that real person's also going to act like a real person. They're not going to be frozen in space and having a weird look on their face and having the same cadence to how they're speaking over and over. It's like, it's awful. It is awful.
Right. And if you really are approaching it from a cost perspective, you should think about how it's actually impacting your cost in the long run. Because if you're losing credibility with your audience, that is a huge detriment to you and your brand and ultimately your success.
Yeah.
So it really comes full circle.
Right. What's the long-term cost of using one of these, I don't even know the word for it, psychotic looking computer-generated faces in your marketing material? What's the cost? If the goal is to humanize healthcare, AI avatars are doing the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, they're ruining it.
Yes, they are.
What's number 5?
Number 5.
Oh, let me finish. What's number 5 out of your 5 tips for better healthcare video marketing?
Number 5 is always ask why, or don't forget the why. The why is the whole reason why you're doing any of it. What is this for? What is your product or service for? Who is it helping? Why should anybody care? Why should anybody use it? You have to ask this question. You have to round out the entire video production with the why. If you don't have it, then you don't have a fully actualized marketing piece, because you can talk about how it happens and who it happens to and what it is exactly, and talk about the science and all the clinical parts of it. But if you aren't talking about the benefits to the patient, the benefits to the clinician who's using it, the greater good of it that's causing in the world, then you're completely missing the point. And I see this a lot. I see videos here on LinkedIn, I see videos on YouTube in this healthcare space that are just nice and shiny and look neat and have these gimmicky graphics and okay lighting and kind of weird music sometimes, and that would all be okay if they would answer the question, why should I care about this? And they inevitably do not. You always have to finish with why. And we always do that with our interviews we do with folks on camera. We can be talking about all sorts of clinical science related things with somebody. We've got a list of questions that we've worked with our client to come up with. We only understand maybe half of them. But at the very end, we as human beings will still ask the subject on camera, all right, so what's the why here? Why do you do the work you do? Why do you care then about this product? How is it helping you realize and actualize your why as a clinician or whoever? And if you just don't have that, you've completely missed an opportunity to humanize your product and service, which is the entire point of Mediflixx. We're always going to strive to humanize everything that we do, and we strongly feel that you should too.
That is the first step. I know it's number 5 in the list, but I would say it's really number 1 whenever you are developing a product. You should know what it's for,
Right.
who it's serving, and what good it brings to the world. Because if you can't answer that, then don't make it.
So let's recap real quick. We got 5 tips. Number 1, know your audience, whether it's patient or a clinician. That's a big part of it. That leads then into tip number 2, which is do not skip pre-production. You have to know on the front end what the message is, what the tone, what the style, what the audience is before you get started, because you will have so many things you have to change on the back end if you don't. Number 3 then is personality is important, or authenticity, as we talked about. Leave a little space for authenticity or a little bit of space for personality, because that will develop trust between you and your audience. Number 4 is avoid AI avatars, because they crush any attempt to squeeze in some personality or authenticity, because it's literally a computer that looks like a person, but not really, and it crushes trust immediately as soon as you see it. Then number 5 is don't forget to ask why. Just ask why. That's just going to make them extrapolate it a little bit further. If you just ask the question, why should I care about this? Why does this matter? That's all you have to do. And you'll notice that these 5 tips really have nothing to do with the technical aspects of video production. If you came to this video thinking that we were going to talk more about cameras or lenses or lights, we will do that at some point, but that's not what this is about. This is about substance. These are about the foundational parts of the substance of your video. If you can just focus on that first, you'll be golden, because the camera stuff, the lenses, the lights, the mics, all the bells and whistles, all that's great, but it's not as important as what you're giving somebody. You have to be giving them something that they actually want to see, that they're actually going to get something out of.
Certainly, because I would say that we've in our marketing efforts seen video production at a low quality perform well if the messaging was right. And it really can just scale and really take off if you add that production. But the first step is always, what content are you serving your audience? Our generation has really started valuing and almost demanding authenticity in a way that is making waves in marketing in general. So you've actually seen a pivot in the way that content is expected to be served to specifically our generation. Thank you so much for sharing your 5 tips with me and with our audience today.
You're welcome.
If you liked those 5 tips, if you learned something, if you have a question for us, comment below. But whatever you do, make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel so that you get to see more of our content in the future. If you're interested in talking to Nick and I one-on-one, click the link below and schedule a strategy call with us. And we look forward to talking to you soon.